With dawn fast approaching, this quiet corner of rural England is transformed into a sea of activity as over 500 cyclists descend upon the quiet seaside town of Minster-on-Sea for the start of this momentous journey across southern England. We're setting off on a journey that will see us cross 5 counties of the UK's diverse landscape, taking in coastal industry, natural wetlands, Roman roads, villages, vales, rivers and gorges along the way. Sunrise is upon us as we leave the vast expanse of the Kent shoreline behind and head south through the town. The steady stream of cyclists cutting a symbol of friendship and camaraderie on its path around the quiet residential streets and out onto the A2 500. It's mile 4 now as we pass beneath the impressive structure of the Isle of Sheppey crossing. Constructed in 2006 to replace the much older vertical lift Kingsferry crossing, which the route takes us on here, it stands at over 115 feet above the Swale, making it the first fixed link to mainland Kent. Heading east now, we make our way along Old Ferry Road and into Raspberry Hill Lane as the ride continues through the tranquil lowlands of North Kent. Here the comparatively flat terrain and quiet country roads as we follow the banks of the River Medway should provide very little in the way of physical challenges along this 7-mile stretch. So now is probably a good opportunity in which to find a rhythm that suits your own particular riding style as we complete the first 6 miles of the ride. We're now on the A2 on what was, and still is, an important transport route linking London with Canterbury and the channel ports of southeast England. There are a few lumps in the profile here to test the legs, particularly as we head through the historic naval towns of Rainham, Chatham and Rochester, as the route snakes its way around the River Medway. Chatham Hill draws upon us, which should be approached with an element of caution for those keen to get some quick early miles in, so take care on the approach just before the railway bridge and be ready to stop if necessary at the traffic signals. just before Rochester Bridge. It's worth pointing out here one of the area's more popular tourist attractions. Standing on the east bank of the River Medway and tucked away from view, the impressive 12th century Rochester Castle served as a strategically important fortification during the late medieval period, protecting England's southeast coast from invasion, where it bore witness to military action several times throughout a 166-year period, until towards the end of the 14th century, when its custodianship was relinquished by the Crown. Today, with its 113-foot high keep and walls 12 feet thick in places, the castle remains one of the best preserved examples of Norman architecture, with its ruins under the care of English Heritage, and is open daily from April to October. Over the River Medway now, and we're on our way out of Rochester. There's just a few more turns until we leave the last major town until Orpington at mile 38. We're now at mile 20 as the undulations in the profile continue and the quieter country roads make a welcome return to the ride. A gentle descent of Sundridge Hill awaits before we take a sharp right turn into Bush Road at the bottom. Here is perhaps a good opportunity to regroup before we head towards the more genteel surroundings of rural Kent. This 1 mile long stretch of Cobham Bury Road offers a short early test just before we reach the picturesque village of Cobham at mile 23. At nearly 9% maximum gradient, it proves to be a good stretch of the legs, as the route profile begins to offer a bit more to the ride. Cobham village itself claims strong links with Sir Charles Dickens, who was frequently seen visiting the village, as the famous novelist drew inspiration from the surroundings whilst writing his first novel, The Pickwick Papers. The route continues through the more leafier suburbs of northwest Kent, with these minor roads perhaps a bit more neglected in some areas than their busier counterparts. So watch out for changes in conditions here, particularly among the several tree-lined sections towards the village of Longfield and beyond. Through the residential streets of South Derenthe at mile 30, and there's a sense now that the London suburbs are not far from us as we begin to tick off several provincial towns on our way to our first major feed stop at Crystal Palace. Here there's a mix of rural back streets and quieter country roads amidst the urban sprawl, as the route completes its journey through Kent and into Surrey. Through the picturesque village of Swanley Village at mile 34, the route makes a course via the parishes of Hockenden, St Paul's Cray and Chislehurst, and the profile causes little trouble, although expect a few changes during the course of the ride here, as residential roads give rise to single-track lanes connecting each village. The early stages of the ride are all about getting the right tempo, so it's perhaps a good opportunity to join a group that is similar to your own pace, and not be tempted to put in any hard efforts now, keeping plenty in the tank for the hard yards later on in the day. Breaking into small groups is also important and will pay dividends further into the ride, particularly as we head into the more congested areas of the London suburbs. More transitional phases here to pick our way through, as the tree-lined sections bring with it a little shelter from the elements on the approach to St Mary Cray at mile 38. Whilst the profile shouldn't cause too much alarm during these stages, the lengthier grinds certainly give your legs something to think about, most notably this 800-foot-long 3% drag of Leeson's Hill at mile 38, and the slightly longer half-mile-long 4% climb of the Chislehurst Road at mile 41, coming in quick succession of one another. Miles further down the road at mile 43, and the bustling town of Bromley offers another pause in the proceedings if time is on your side. Here there's a generous selection of prominent cafes and grocery stores to stock up on as we continue heading further into the more crowded sections. As we cross the border into Surrey at mile 46, the Saturday morning traffic will have undoubtedly begun to intensify, leading to some congestion as we ride through the towns of Beckenham and Penge at miles 45 and 46 respectively. So take extra care on these busier sections. In the distance, you might catch a glimpse of Crystal Palace Transmitting Tower. Constructed in the mid-1950s, originally to serve a 60-mile radius, it stands at 719 feet on top of Crystal Palace Park and was the tallest structure in London for some 40 years, until One Canada Square in Canary Wharf was completed in 1991. The name Crystal Palace was conceived following the relocation of the structure, which housed the Great Exhibition of 1851, where more than 14,000 exhibitors from around the world gathered within its 990,000 square foot exhibition space to display examples of technology developed during the Industrial Revolution. Originally constructed in Hyde Park, it stood at the top of Sydenham Hill from 1854 until its destruction by fire in 1936. At 367 feet above sea level, it is also one of the highest points in London and offers breathtaking views across the city. Approaching the end of Thicket Road and the junction with the A214, the route here takes us on to Annerley Hill, with an average gradient of 6.4% and a maximum of 11.4. This 3/4 of a mile stretch represents the final test before our first major feed stop of the day, Cadence Performance Cycling Centre at mile 48. Once at the top, the centre can be found on your left-hand side, and will provide a welcome break from what should hopefully have been an enjoyable introduction to the ride, and where riders can indulge in a hot breakfast and a chance to regroup.